All right, welcome everybody to our Saturday training. I can't believe it's already halfway through December. It is crazy. But that being said, so we're coming up, right? Coming up on Christmas, coming up on New Year's, and then next thing we know, it's going to be 2025. 3 weeks, in less than 3 weeks, we're in the new year. So as I mentioned last week, uh, the whole concept of something new, right? We're not doing next anymore. We're doing something new, based on a similar concept, based on what we all fell in love with back in the day. But it that has been put to bed. That was, a project that was a very good learning experience for everybody. But the new year will bring us something new. And we expect to hear more about this something new first part of January. I believe the first call will be on the 8th of January. We'll get together with Peter, with Malin, and the Leadership Council, and we'll have a talk. Right? We'll hear what they're thinking, what the plan is, kind of next steps, and where we're going. Obviously, I think for the most part, some of the worries about what was going to happen with the election and maybe with the BRICS nation and stuff, I think that's been calmed down a bit. We're still not quite out of the woods. There's still craziness in the world, and
Drones
oh, how,
flying around.
yeah, drones flying around, all kinds of weird stuff, right? And you just don't know, right? I mean, there's still obviously a war with Ukraine and Russia. There's still other things going on in the Middle East. So we just don't know. Hopefully things will calm down. With the new year, that's the goal anyway, right? That's the hope. And but we just don't know how that's going to affect things over the next few months still. So we'll see. We'll see what Peter and the powers that be are thinking once we reconvene in January. And hopefully, they're feeling good about stuff. Hopefully, they're thinking that the worst is behind us. That we're not going to have civil war, and so we can move forward. So that's our hope, but we won't know until then. So as mentioned, we're going to take a break after today. I'm actually going on a family vacation for Christmas and New Year's and stuff. So we're not going to do any more Saturday calls for the next few weeks. We will reconvene after the beginning of the year. In fact, I actually don't even think there's any need to meet on the very first Saturday of January. There's not going to be much to talk about really. Maybe. We'll see. If there's something to do, we'll announce it. But I'm thinking the most exciting stuff is going to come on that 8th January call, and I'd like to share all that on the following Saturday, right? So we'll see how it goes. And if we can do something, maybe that first Saturday, we'll announce it. Otherwise, just plan on the next 3 weeks, just enjoying being with family and friends and whatever you do for Christmas and New Year's, and we'll reconvene in January. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Today is not so much a training as it is just a really good um, positive social impact story that I heard years ago. I loved it. I borrowed it from the lady that shared it. She gave permission to go ahead and share her story, and I just put it into. I kind of condensed it a little bit because what she shared was a bit longer, but I've adapted it to what we are trying to do with a positive social impact, with a Christmas twist to it, and it really is just about this whole idea of giving back, being sensitive to promptings, being willing to look beyond ourselves, right, and think about others, because that's really the message. The message is all about getting rid of the ego, looking beyond ourselves. I remember one time, somebody asked. It was a Christian pastor who they were interviewing him, and they said, "Well, what do you tell somebody?" at Christmas time, that's suffering, that's, they don't, maybe don't have enough money, maybe they can't afford, to buy presents, maybe they can't afford a nice dinner or whatever. And his answer was profound, and he basically said, "Well, I tell people is it's not about you. It's not about you, right? It's about what you can go do for others, right? And you don't need money. You can just go be with somebody, talk to them, lift them up, share with them, spend time with them, go, do some service, right? Volunteer in a soup kitchen, something, right? Just give of your time. That's what it's all about. It's not about you, right? If we can change that mindset of, oh, I'm the victim. Oh, poor me, or I can't, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not about you. It's about going out and helping others. And when you change that mindset, everything else changes, right? And that's the whole idea of what we're trying to do with the positive social impact and with a tool of banking and e-commerce and rewards and all that stuff tied in. Absolutely. So we can, accelerate that and make it more accessible to people, not only here in the United States but across the world. That's really the ultimate goal of this new project that we're going to see in 2025. So that is the kind of the setup for what I'm going to share today. So now let me go ahead and share. I've got a little, I did create just a basic PowerPoint of it, but there's really not much more than just this. So go ahead and away, and here we go. So this is called the 12th day of Christmas, right? We all know, the story of the 12 days of Christmas and what it means, and there's some background to it. One of the things I'm fascinated by is, and I learned this from the Mexican culture, Latino culture. They don't do Santa Claus; they do the Three Kings Day, right? Which basically, so it starts on the 25th, and then they go 12 days to January 6th. And on January 6th, that is the day that the three kings show up and bring gifts to all the kids. And so kids in Mexico, or Latin America, they don't wait for Christmas Eve and then the next morning, Christmas Day, they're going to get presents from Santa Claus. No, what they do is they have Christmas Eve, is it's more of the religious celebration and everything, but they don't exchange gifts that day, or maybe they do a little bit because it's seeped into it, right? But their big thing is then on January 6th, the three kings come and they write a letter to the three kings, right? The three wise men, and then the three wise men bring them gifts overnight, and they wake up to their gifts, right, on January 6th. So it's really fun in my family. My kids are extra blessed, right? Because they get both. They get the Christmas presents from Santa Claus, and they get the Three Kings presents because their mom, being from Mexico, likes to celebrate that as well. So they get double presents, and they love that. But anyway, it's kind of a fun thing. But if we think about really what the 12th day of Christmas signifies, right? That is the ultimate gift that we've been given. And this story, it starts out as follows. This is as told by June Stanley. Okay, so June Stanley, she tells the story that it was the beginning of the Christmas season, and I was the mother to a rambunctious 2-year-old and pregnant with our second child. And as much as I loved motherhood and all the attendant responsibilities, I felt bone tired and half dead. But I was feeling spiritually despondent. I knew I needed a change in my life. My parents had set a wonderful example for me in my youth, and I knew the remedy to my spiritual complacency was to get out of the house and serve. So, about that time, my church congregation, announced that they needed volunteers for a 12 days of Christmas server project with the community. And they had identified 2 individuals in our neighborhood to be the recipients of the service: an older woman who was nearly blind and housebound because of arthritic knees, and a single new mother who had just given birth to twins. This opportunity to serve was just what I was looking for. Being a new mother myself, I felt like I could connect with the young mother and her needs. I eagerly signed my name to the sign up sheet, and I even took the liberty of indicating who I wanted to help. Happily, over the next couple of days, I planned what I was going to give to this new little family as I anxiously awaited my assignment. I waited and I waited, and as I waited, I window shopped and I imagined the gifts that I was going to give each member of this new little family. It felt great to be thinking about someone else. Finally, my assignment came. My excitement mounted as I saw that I was assigned the last day of gift giving, the 12th day. I was thrilled. I would be giving the culminating gifts to the young mother, the very last gifts of the gift giving season. I anxiously scanned my assignment for the name of the young woman, and I wanted to put a name to the face I had been imagining. Ah, there it was. Her name was Merla. Merla? That didn't sound like a young woman's name. It sounded more like an old lady's name. And then it hit me. It was an old lady's name. I had been assigned to the blind old woman. I told myself that it had to be some kind of mistake. I had signed up to help the young mother, and I had been planning for the young mother, not some old lady. How could this happen? What a dumb service project. The more I thought about it, the more irritable I became. Hadn't God seen how willing I was to help the young mother and her babies? Didn't He remember I was looking for opportunities to feel the Spirit in my life? Then why was I assigned to the old woman? I thought He was supposed to be on top of these things. So days 1 through 10 passed, and I had successfully shoved all the guilt associated with the 12 days of Christmas aside. I hesitate to admit it, but I had decided I wasn't even going to participate. I didn't need that in my life. I had plenty on my plate to keep me busy. What was one more gift to an old lady that probably already had everything? Besides, I was tired. My tummy was huge, and I just didn't feel like doing it anymore. So what if I wasn't feeling the Spirit in my life? I probably would eventually. Wow. Can you see how much I needed God's help at that point? On the morning of the 11th day, my thoughts turned to the elderly woman that I was supposed to visit the next day. Despite my best efforts at suppression, I was beginning to feel the pricks of a guilty conscience. After all, I had been looking for opportunities to serve, and I had signed up to help. No one had forced me to do that, and it wasn't like it was the old woman's fault that I'd been assigned to her. So the Spirit continued to work on me throughout the day, and my heart continued to thaw. Late that night, I was finally able to kneel in humble prayer and tearfully ask for forgiveness. I acknowledged the need to feel the Spirit more in my life, and I pled that I would. I asked for help in finding the perfect gift for the old woman. The next day, I woke up with a new sense of excitement. I planned to go to the grocery store and pick up a few items and then over to the department store to find a gift. Though Merla would never know it, I was anxious to make up for the way I had been thinking about her, and I wanted to get her something meaningful, something better than all the 11 previous gifts that she had received. As I entered the grocery store, I noticed a large display of red and white poinsettias. Each pot plant was festively wrapped in foil that was gathered together with a large white ribbon. Inexplicably, I was drawn to the poinsettias. As I moved closer to them, my heart began to pound in my chest, and a thought formed in my head: buy a poinsettia for the old woman. I stopped short in front of the display, puzzled by the thought. Buy a poinsettia for the old woman? Where did that come from? I smiled to myself as I wondered why in the world I would want to buy a simple grocery store poinsettia for an old woman, when surely there was something bigger and better at the department store. I was anxious to make up for my bad attitude, and a grocery store special wasn't going to do it. Besides, the old woman was blind. How could she enjoy a poinsettia? I dismissed the thought and continued my grocery shopping. After I found what I needed in the store, I headed for the checkout counter, and a couple of customers were already in the checkout line. I had to wait a few minutes before it was my turn. But while I waited, I idly read the headlines on the latest magazines and Then, from out of nowhere, the same thought as before pushed itself into the forefront of my mind. Buy a poinsettia for the old woman. I was startled at the unexpected intrusion on my thoughts and simultaneously realized I had that same thought when I entered the store. How strange was that? I was about to dismiss the thought again, but something inside stopped me, and the idea began to take root. I finally decided I would buy the poinsettia as a backup gift. But if I found something better at the store or the department store, I'd give that to her instead. I excused myself from the checkout line and, after briefly surveying the poinsettias, selected a beautiful red one. As I pushed the poinsettia toward the checkout counter, a sweet, warm feeling came over me, and my heart seemed to burst with joy. I didn't know why, but any thought of buying a different gift was just gone. And I was actually excited about taking the poinsettia to the old woman. After a quick dinner, I shrugged into my winter coat and carried the poinsettia to my car. I checked the address of the woman and slowly drove through the neighborhood looking for the right house. When I found it and pulled up to the curb, I suddenly felt very foolish about giving the poinsettia to a blind woman. In fact, I was feeling so hesitant about the whole thing, I almost drove away. But at that moment, I recalled the warm, sweet feeling I'd had at the store, and I felt assured that I should give the poinsettia to the woman. I took a deep breath, got out of the car. The front door of the house was ajar, and when I knocked on the door frame, a rich, happy voice called for me to come in. I stepped into an overly warm front room. Merla was sitting in a burgundy colored back chair, her back to me. Beyond her, stacked on the sofa, was a wide array of beautiful and thoughtful gifts. There was a music box, a scarf, and gloves, a heating pad. I looked at the simple grocery store poinsettia in my hands, and instantly felt a stab of embarrassment. Doubt again filled my mind, and I made a hasty decision. I decided to set the poinsettia down behind the chair as I approached the old woman. I would just tell her I came to visit, and then I'd take the poinsettia home with me, and she would never even see it. I sat down in a chair across from Merlin. Much to my delight and surprise, after visiting with her for a few minutes, I found her to be the most engaging and fascinating woman I'd ever met. She had lived a full and amazing life, and I found it so easy to talk to her and laugh with her. The time flew by as we visited, and when I glanced at my watch, I had no idea I'd stayed so long. So I got up to leave and was saying my goodbyes when I saw the forgotten poinsettia. I picked it up this time without hesitation. By now, I felt like I knew Merla well enough that she would be gracious about anything I gave her. Merla, I said, I brought you a gift for the 12th day of Christmas. She was tickled and thanked me profusely. It's not much, I said apologetically as I placed the potted plant on her lap. Merla wrapped her hands around the foil, exploring the texture. But what is it? She asked. Well, it's a poinsettia, I answered. And then, to my astonishment, Merla's face froze in shocked disbelief. My own eyes opened wide with panic at her reaction to the poinsettia, and a million thoughts ran through my mind in that moment, most of them having to do with the absurdity of giving a poinsettia to a blind woman. I should have known better. Why did I think this was such a good idea? My heart began to pound in my chest, and I felt my cheeks flush with color. Then, to my further surprise, Merla crushed the poinsettia to her chest. I watched in bewilderment as large tears filled her eyes and spilled down her wrinkled cheeks. She began to gently rock back and forth, her arms wrapped tightly around the poinsettia. Oh, sweetheart, she wept as she rocked. My darling, I've missed you so much. I love you too. This, of course, made no sense to me. I really wasn't sure what to do, and so I waited, frozen in place, until Merla's weeping subsided. Merla, I asked cautiously, is there something wrong? Another minute passed as Merla composed herself, and then she smiled at me through her tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to blubber like a baby, but your gift caught me off guard. I guess I don't understand, I replied. Merla drew in a deep, steadying breath. Her eyes were still wet, and her emotions still close to the surface. Let me explain, she offered. Then she told me that her husband had died several months previous. He was the love of her life, and she thought him to be the most wonderful man in the whole world. She said that she had been wondering if he missed her as much as she missed him. She said she had been praying every day for weeks and weeks to know if he still thought about her and if he still loved her. Marilla stared beyond the poinsettia for a long moment, and then she said, "And finally tonight, God answered my prayers and sent you." "Me?" I repeated in surprise. "I don't understand. How am I an answer to your prayers?" Marilla reached for my hand and squeezed it. Then she explained that when they celebrated their first anniversary, her husband had given her a poinsettia. She didn't think too much about it, except that it was a sweet gesture. But when he gave her a poinsettia on their second anniversary, she realized it was a tradition with him, and so she asked him why. He said that poinsettias symbolized enduring love, and he had always loved her, and that he would love her forever. Merla looked forward to getting poinsettias after that, and he gave one to her every year of their marriage. Marilla became somber and quiet for a moment. Finally, with a faraway look in her eyes, she said, "You didn't know this, but today would have been our anniversary." She paused and then smiled, warm and radiant, as fresh tears streamed down her face again. "And through you, my sweet husband has sent me a poinsettia. It's his way of telling me that he still loves me." A slow, radiating warmth seemed to fill the room, as well as my heart, and with it came indescribable joy. Tears sprang to my eyes as I looked from Merla to the poinsettia. I saw it with new eyes. Instead of a simple plant in a pot, I saw a beautiful symbol of love and devotion between an adoring husband and his beloved wife, whom he had loved with all his heart in life and continued to love even across that awful gulf of death. As I stepped out of Merla's home and into the night, I paused on her doorstep and looked up. The stars seemed a little brighter, and heaven seemed a little closer. Tears flowed freely as I offered a heartfelt prayer of thanks and gratitude to a loving, compassionate, eternal Father who not only answered my prayer, but who also allowed me the honor and privilege of participating with him in his plan for Merla's. Tears. Every time I share that story, I tear up myself. I love it. I think it's a perfect example of how we can be instruments. We can be the source of joy and happiness in those around us. So thank you everyone for being on this journey. It's a very worthy journey, I think, having that vision of being able to go and create a positive social impact for people all across the world is the most noble thing we could be a part of. And even though the project is still a little ways out, doesn't mean we can't go and do it in other ways in the meantime. So that's my invitation. Take this time, take these next few weeks and next several months as we get into the new year to take time and find ways to have that positive social impact. We don't need to wait. We can start today and make somebody's Christmas a very merry one. So with that, I'll let you get back to your Saturdays. Thanks so much, everybody, and we will see you in the new year. Okay, take care.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas and Happy New Year, now.
Thank you,
See you
Shirley.
in
Merry
January.
Christmas.
Bye.
Love ya.
Love you
Merry
too.
Christmas.
Bye.